By the time this interview with Kim Cattrall aired on Later with Bob Costas, December 30th, 1991, while she was promoting her role in Star Trek VI. My God, Star Trek VI was 32 years ago? My God. How old am I? Anyhow, by the time this aired, Kim Cattrall had already gotten to the point of not having to play sexy girl roles, being able to play women roles. And by the time we all got to know her as Samantha on Sex and the City, she was the most free woman ever. She acted like a man, equal to a man. She did what she wanted, how she wanted.
Thanks for staying up later. The actress Kim Cattrall is with us tonight, and out now, Star Trek VI. And I'm sure that the turnstiles are clicking like crazy. This is guaranteed to be another box office success because, no kidding, it's the last one, right?
No kidding, for sure. Absolutely, the last one.
Kind of sums up 25 years of the voyages of the Starship Enterprise?
Yes, to go where no man or woman has gone before, yes. This is it.
Were you a Trekkie yourself as a kid watching the television show?
I was a real big fan of the 60s television show, the original one. I loved the way it looked. It was sort of overlit, and all the women were wearing fabulous outfit, and the men had tight pants. I thought it was just a wonderful, imaginative series.
And it succeeded on two levels. It could be an adventure series if you looked at it a certain way, but there was always a certain tongue-in-cheek aspect to it also.
Absolutely, and they've continued to do that throughout the movies, so they complement each other, and now with the next generation, it's going steps further than all of them have gone.
Now, I saw the TV show a fair number of times, like anybody of my generation did, but I was never a Trekkie. But obviously there are millions of these Trekkie people out there.
Oh, man, it's a phenomenon. I mean, no one can really explain it. I talked to Leonard and Bill Shatner and DeForest Kelley, and I said, well, what is it about it? Why? And none of them really know. I think for me it was that the characters were in outer space at that time when space was just opening up, you know, the final frontier. And also they were still so human, so flawed and lovable.
Also at a time when a lot of people were doing a lot of drugs, I'm thinking, and they were imagining they were in outer space, and maybe in a sense they were.
Right.
They were taking a voyage where no man had gone before on their own, and they were just kind of hitching along for the ride.
Yeah, both sides.
Do you feel a responsibility to these Trekkie people? Do they write you letters? Maybe more Shatner and Nimoy, perhaps, but...
Yeah, those are the sort of big daddies of this whole operation. For me, coming here to New York, I did my first convention, which was kind of nerve-wracking for me because I don't know really what that would entail. So they asked me to come, I arrived, and all these people started screaming and yelling. And I've had that with sort of male co-stars, but never with myself. And so it's kind of a thrill, actually. I enjoyed it. They're very, very enthusiastic, very lovable.
You play kind of a protege companion to Spock, and you got the ears on. And they tell me that you loved wearing those ears.
Oh, yeah. It was the coolest thing. We would get there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and Leonard would sit on one sort of makeup kiosk, and I would sit on the other, and I would be reading the New York Times, he'd be reading the LA Times, then we'd switch when one ear was dumb and one wasn't. It was quite fun. Then I'd go to restaurants and sort of pull back my ear, and there it would be, and people would be, oh my God, is it real? Can I touch it? People really want to touch things like that, you know, little pointed things.
Did it make you feel more intelligent to be a Vulcan?
It was quite an exercise because as an actress you always want your emotions available to you. And for me playing this character, it was always bottled up, always contained, and using other ways to get across who I was and what I wanted out of this film experience was really a challenge.
Captain on the...
Was it an emotional thing for those who had been there for the whole ride, for Shatner, for Nimoy? They know they're wrapping the whole thing up, and they know that for whatever reasons, this is kind of a part of American popular culture, and this is the last chapter.
Well, it was for me, and I'm a newcomer. I'm the new kid on the bridge. I was getting choked up. I didn't want the film to end because, and I don't want to give too much away, but I didn't want the circumstances that happened in the script to happen because I wanted to stay with them. I wanted to be part of that family. But there's always a feeling, I mean, Leonard has done a couple of episodes of The New Generation. There's just this continuing feeling that even if the films are finished and the old crew is retired, they will just go on and on and on. As William Shatner says, they don't get older, only the uniforms do.
Yeah. Now, this is guaranteed to be a box office success. You were in one recently, Bonfire of the Vanities, which is almost synonymous. You know, it's up there with Heaven's Gate and Ishtar as a failure.
Yes.
It doesn't land on your shoulders, but you were there, you had some stake in it. How did it make you feel?
Well, it was so exciting for me to be cast by Brian De Palma and to play Judy McCoy, because I had read the book and I'd loved it. I thought it was brilliantly conceived and so real as to what is going on in society today. I was very disappointed that it had so much against it from the very beginning. The press, the climate here in New York last year when we were shooting, and just people's expectations of who should be playing who. To me, it never really got a clear start out of the gate. It was hampered by so many of these things that I've said. For me, it was a good experience because I got to really get into the skin of somebody that I'd never played before. In my 30s, I'm becoming more of a character actress, which I'm enjoying, because I get to go in all kinds of directions. And doing Bonfire was really a chance for me to grab onto something new and go for it.
Tom Hanks was the Sherman McCoy character,
Yes.
and you played his wife.
Judy.
Although at first, didn't you want to play the mistress role, the woman in the car?
I think anybody would want to play that role because she was so much fun, you know, to be inside of. I thought Melanie did a great job, but I knew that the studio was going to be going for big guns, and I just finished doing a play, and I thought I haven't done anything for a while. I'll try for Judy, and it happened.
Yeah, Melanie Griffith, by the way, is the woman who played the role of Tom Hanks' mistress,
Maria, yes.
Maria that Kim referred to. You play the wife, and De Palma told you to more or less model it after Nancy Reagan, right?
Yes, that was, he kept saying, think Nancy. Think thin. You can never be too rich or too thin. It was painful. I had to lose 15 pounds. I'm so glad to be healthy and full of life again. I felt so vulnerable all the time. I felt like a little skeleton walking around.
How did you invest it with humanity, but at the same time make her as unappealing as she had to be on some level?
I do that with most of the sort of unsympathetic characters that I have to play. This guy was cheating on her, you know. In the book, he left the relationship a long time ago, and she had to find other ways to make her life full and realized. So she's hanging on to threads of a marriage, and it's a very sad position that she's in. So for me playing it, I felt justified, you know, doing the things that I had to do to hold on to this family.
The almost universal assessment, even as some of the performances were praised, was that the book, Tom Wolfe's novel, just simply wasn't translated well to the screen. A lot of the subtleties were lost, the characterizations were lost, some of the casting was questioned. Not the ability of the actors and actresses, but whether they were well suited to those roles. And in the overview, the whole thing comes down as a failure.
Yeah, disappointing failure. I think Brian De Palma first was introduced to the book by a tape that was doing it in a farcical kind of way, the reading, John Lithgow's reading of the book. So he, from the very beginning, had that in his head, that that's the way it should be played. Looking back on it, the book is so brilliant that it sort of takes this anthill, slices it open, and says, this is what it is. It serves it up as the reality. And I think Brian didn't really trust that. Or maybe he trusted it in LA and New York that they'd get it, but maybe Middle America wouldn't. So he hyped it. Yeah.
Yeah, the characterizations, I think, were too broad on film, compared to all the subtlety and a lot of the narrative, which is always difficult to translate, you know, a lengthy book into a 2-hour movie, but a lot of the narrative just went right down the drain.
I felt that my scene that was most successful in achieving that balance was the Golden Crumb scene. I felt very satisfied with that. That scene for me was just enough. Not unreal, but very realistic, still proving the points that had to be made.
Julie Solomon, who's a reporter for the Wall Street Journal, wrote this book, The Devil's Candy, and she was given access, pretty much complete access, by Brian De Palma from the beginning of the project right on through the editing and everything else. And as we've said, the project turns out to be an almost unmitigated failure. And now here is her story about what happened and what went wrong. Did you feel violated?
Violated? No, I didn't feel violated. I felt misunderstood, possibly. But my part in the film was very separated from the main action. I came in the beginning for a short period and then the latter end. So I didn't feel violated. I felt sort of informed reading the book because I wasn't aware of a lot of the political games that were going on. Brian very much protects his actors from all of that, which I think is good. You don't need to know that while you're working. Later on, you'll read a book about it.
You were the youngest student ever to graduate from the American Academy of Music and Art, right?
Yes.
And you also went to theater school in London as a teenager. And early on in your career, you're doing movies like Porky's and Police Academy.
Right.
Did you have ambivalent feelings about it?
I did. I don't know if I do now. I felt that I needed to work in front of the camera. I'd been a theater actress, and the kind of parts that were coming to me had more to do with just, you know, being pretty and energetic and having talent and being reliable. I think it was really with Masquerade that I decided this is enough of this. I've learned enough. I can graduate from playing girls. I want to play women now. So it had its use within the growing and the evolution of learning and being a woman, being an actress. But there was a time where I said, no, I can't do that anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to sit down and eat. I don't want to have an appetizer anymore. I want to gorge myself.
And we're back now with Kim Cattrall. Prior to the Star Trek movie and Bonfire of the Vanities, was Mannequin probably your most visible role? Was that the one that people cited?
I think so, yes. It was a big hit. Kids loved it. Had a great MTV video. It hit the market, yes, I think it was.
You played this ancient Egyptian spirit who inhabited this mannequin in a store window.
Yes.
Andrew McCarthy fell in love with you. It was a cute film.
Yeah, it was a nice sort of like a touch of Venus kind of theme to it, and a Twilight Zone kind of theme to it. Kids just really latched onto it. And it was sort of released at spring break, so it was good timing all the way around.
There's a funny story about how they cast you, isn't there? Someone told me there was.
What was it?
I don't know. I was hoping you could fill in that blank.
I was doing Big Trouble in Little China at the time, and it was a very busy year. I was doing Three Sisters at night. I was playing Masha in Three Sisters at night at LATC, Los Angeles Theater Center. I was doing Big Trouble in Little China from 6 o'clock in the morning until about 6 o'clock at night. And on my one day off, or half of my day off on a Saturday, I auditioned for Mannequin. They already had someone in mind, and I sort of came in and thought, what am I going to do with this? I guess I'll sort of create this character based on another character that I had played called Puck in A Midsummer Night's Dream, which is really like an sort of energetic little sprite who keeps making people bump into each other, fall in love, havoc. And I thought if I could sort of contain her within the walls of Wanamaker's, it could work, and I was cast.
I guess really this is what being an actress is about, but still it's hard for me to thinking of you in Bonfire of the Vanities, the role you played there, sitting here talking to you now, it's hard for me to think of you as the nymphomaniac cheerleading coach in Porky's.
Well, I'm very versatile, you know.
Well, my hat is off to you.
Yeah, right. That was kind of that was a dare. Porky's was a dare. I don't know if I'd take the dare now. I'd done tribute with the same director, and he said, you should do this. And I said, I got to tell you, I'm a little scared to do this. How does this work? He said, people don't see you as a sexy girl. They see you as a safe girl. After this, they'll think more about you as a sexy girl. Well, this role, sexy wasn't in it. It was nymphomania, you know. I became this sort of little nymphette. And I sort of thought, well, God, I better go back to the theater. Regain my reputation.
Did you feel uncomfortable, or did you just say, look, this is a step along the way, and I accept it as that?
I did while I was doing it, but it became this huge monster, you know, of a hit. And then people started saying, oh, well, I know her from that. And it wasn't until really Mannequin and Masquerade that things started to change into another kind of look instead of just sort of teenage bimbat.
You mentioned Tribute, which I remember seeing when it was first released. This goes back like 13, 14 years ago, but I can't recall you in it.
I play, it's a sort of a peripheral character. I am Jack Lemmon's pal. We meet in the hospital, and then we become friends, and he brings me in to sort of loosen up his son, Robbie Benson. So I'm in the peripheral story. The main story is, of course, Robbie Benson and Jack Lemmon, their relationship.
Yeah, it really was a touching film where they
sweet film.
were estranged, and it's only when he's dying that they're able to kind of come back together and
Right.
and reconcile.
Sweet, sweet film. A lot of men, young men and fathers have sort of said, well, I want to get back with Dad before something like this happens.
For a while, and this seems like a long resume for someone who's still young and hasn't been around all that long, but for a while you were a contract player at Universal, right?
Yes, I was. I was doing the Rocky Horror Show up in Toronto, Canada. I was playing Janet and having a great time. And a coach saw me, not a coach, what do you call it?
Talent scout?
Talent scout, right. And she said, I think that you would do well under the program. And I thought, great, I got to go back to New York City, but it was in Hollywood. I didn't know how to drive. I didn't know where I was going. It was a mess. I remember going to 20th Century Fox for an audition and getting on a bus. It took me 4 hours to get there. And when I got back home, I said, I've got to learn how to drive, else I'm not going to exist here. But it was quite an experience being under contract to doing like Starsky and Hutch 1 week and family episodes and The Bastard, and I really felt like I was under the old system of you're doing this week and this week, and you know, take writing lessons because next week you're doing that. It was kind of a good introduction to the film world.
About your first film, Rosebud.
God, we're talking about all my films like they're disasters.
No, that was a straightforward question. Any inference was yours.
I was 16 years old, going to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and someone saw me in a play and said, hey, you know, Otto Preminger's making this film called Rosebud, and you would be great for the American Girl. Of course, I was English-Canadian. Of course, I'd be great for the American Girl. So I met him up in his offices on Fifth Avenue, bald head, drinking vodka, very weird and strange. Read for him, and he said, fantastic, okay, you're it. The next thing I know, I'm on a plane. I'm in the south of France by myself, and I'm wondering, what is this about? And then the rehearsal process, which was pure agony. I mean, one day you were brilliant, and the next day you were horrible. He was so up and down, you didn't know what was going on. Then the yelling and the screaming on the set, and I thought, I don't want to be in movies. I want to be in the theater where people communicate and talk, and people were being fired. You just never knew what the next day was going to bring. So after that experience, I ran back to the theater and said, I don't want to make movies. These people are crazy.
This is about a group of teenage girls who get kidnapped, right?
Yes,
and it was right about the time of the Patty Hearst situation.
John Lindsay played my father in the film.
The mayor of New York?
Ex-mayor of New York, yes. He was doing a little acting at the time, and Otto thought it would just be perfect that he would be my dad. And he and I became friends because of it.
Was the role right for him?
Well, he's a father in real life, and he's a very caring man, so yes, yes. But when he came on the screen here in New York when we were showing it, people booed and hissed, so I don't know. Maybe they didn't agree that he made a very good actor.
So now, if somebody popped in a cassette of Rosebud, would you run? Or would you stare in fascination?
Fascination, I think, at this point, because I would see this sort of short-haired, chubby-faced little girl trying to take steps towards what this was about, what this career could be. I was so tentative and so trusting in some ways because I felt that it was going to be very much like theater school, where people were... You were being prepared for what it was going to be like in the professional world, which was make your choices and be true to yourself, all of those things that you hear. And this was just, you know, 100 degrees different from that.
And Star Trek 6, which is somewhere in your neighborhood unless you live in Timbuktu. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you. Pleasure.
We're out of here. See you later.